Welcome, everybody. Let me just, let me just figure this out. Why is this not working? Had some problems over the last, with the recording of, let's try this. There we go.
The radical, fundamental principles of freedom.
I don't know what's going on. All
Rational
right.
self-interest and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this July 22nd. It's a Tuesday. Fixed the music. Apologies about that. I know some of you have gotten the podcast with no sound. The same problem that caused the no sound was causing the no music. And, you know, given that I am the tech guy, I didn't realize what was going on. And now I did. And I think now I fixed it. Now our podcast should have sound on again. So we should be officially fine. We'll see. We'll see what happens as we go along. I get that from your perspective, the most important, from some of you perspective, the death of Ozzy Osbourne is the most important news item of the day. Somebody who wasn't a fan, I can't necessarily relate. To me, it's just, it is, this is the deep meaning of the passing away of Ozzy Osbourne. Robert and me and some of you other people out there are getting old. That's the significance. Our what do you call it? Our rock idols are dying off. Our rock idols, or your rock idols, not my rock idols. Anyway, but generally our rock idols are dying off. The people we listen to in those amazing 1970s, they're dying off. And that means we too are getting old. They were about, 10, 20 years older than us. Yeah, you do the math. All right. So let's jump into the news, because I've got, what did I list there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 topics. 11 topics. So obviously I'm not going to spend a lot of time on any one of them. But it's the summer blues. There's just nothing that exciting going on in the world right now. I mean, there's a war going on in Ukraine, and there's still a war going on in Gaza. And I'm sure that people being slaughtered in Syria and so on, but nothing really rising to the surface as a major news item that we can talk a lot about. And most of the important news we've talked about before, so we'll just skim the surface here and cover a bunch of different issues, a bunch of typical topics, as it is 11 different ones, from Jeffrey Epstein to artificial intelligence. All right, let's start with Epstein. I mean, Epstein is just a thorn in Trump's side, and he can't get rid of it. He can't. It really is difficult. The House of Representatives was about to vote on a bill demanding the release of the Epstein files by the Justice Department, and Thomas Massie was one of the congressmen on the Republican side leading this effort, but the Democrats were all going to vote for it, and it really looked like this bill would pass. And Donald Trump, of course, went nuts, and he goes out and he goes, Thomas Massie, the worst Republican congressman, and an almost guaranteed no vote each and every time is an embarrassment to Kentucky. He's lazy, slow-moving, and totally disingenuous, a real loser. Never has anything positive to add. Looking for someone good to run against this guy, someone I can endorse and vigorously campaign for. In other words, please don't release the Epstein files, because I have nothing to hide. I'm just saying. Anyway, so Trump freaked out. And then as a consequence, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, freaked out. And he basically said, I can't stop this thing from coming to a vote. It looks like it's going to come to a vote, and it will be very embarrassing if this resolution by the House to release the files, all the files, the Epstein files, happens under my watch. And therefore, given that I'm for transparency, and I want to let the people decide and all of that, I'm shutting down the House, and we're going on vacation. And I'll see you guys in September. And in September, we'll figure it out. Maybe by then, the storm will calm, and things will be better, and the pressure will be off, and I won't be between a rock and a hard place with regard to this Epstein thing. So yeah, House has gone home. No more government business for the House of Representatives. It has been defeated by the Jeffrey Epstein resolution that they are not going to pass, and they're not going to engage in. He's just shutting down the House instead of dealing with that. In the meantime, in the Senate, there's some talk of subpoenaing, of having a subpoena to bring Ghislaine Maxwell to come and testify before the Senate. I'm sure that isn't making Trump happy. So Trump has sent a deputy, number 2 in the Justice Department to talk to Ghislaine Maxwell. And I'm sure, the message to Giselle is, be completely truthful. Tell them everything you know. Don't worry about it. Just everything is cool. Or maybe, who knows? Maybe there's some deal to silence her going on in the background. But yes, the Justice Department is sending its number 2 person to go sit down with Giselle in her cell, in jail, and discuss potentially her upcoming testimony, or maybe some kind of deal. Maybe they'll let her out early if she comes on TV on primetime and said, there really is a black book. I ate it, so it's gone. But I can tell you, I know what she's going to say, right? I'm going to tell you Obama and Clinton were in the book. Trump was not. Can I go home now? Can I go to my mansion now? Can I go and get out of jail? Free card now? Anyway, the machinations. I doubt we'll ever know what really went on and what really happened and all of that. But it's just fun to watch this administration with all the evil that they are doing. Yeah, evil that they are doing. This is the thing. This is the thing that gets them tied up in knots and get them really upset and gets them really worried and frantic and actually gets to shut down the House of Representatives. This is it. This is it. It's not Giselle, it's something else. Giselle is Tom Brady's ex. How would I even know that? I don't know who's Tom Brady. I think he's a football player. I know that. But I don't know who his ex is. Who cares who his ex is? Giselle, is it Giselle? Is it something else? Am I mispronouncing her name? Who cares? All right. So the gift that keeps on giving, the Jeffrey Epstein case. Glad he's dead. He deserved that death. I'm glad she's in jail. I hope they don't cut a deal with her. And I'm glad to see Donald Trump being a little bit frantic about the whole thing. A little bit, just upset about the whole thing. All right. Tariffs. Another gift that keeps on giving. There's no end to tariffs, of course, because every day there's some new deal being cut. But listen to this. We just cut. The president just announced this amazing, once in a lifetime, never happen again, deal with the Philippines. This is Donald Trump. President Ferdinand Marcos of the Philippines is just leaving the White House with all of his many representatives. It was a beautiful visit, and we concluded our trade deal, whereby the Philippines is going to open market with the United States and zero tariffs. That's great. The Philippines are not going to tax their own people when they buy American stuff. Good. The Philippines will pay a 19% tariff, or, to translate that for all of you, American consumers will pay 19% tax on everything they buy from the Philippines. Who got the better deal here? I think it's Filipino consumers. He writes, in addition, we will work together militarily. That's good. It was a great honor to be with the president. He is highly respected in his country, and he should be. He is also a very good and tough negotiator. I mean, he must have, wow. We extend our warmest regards to the wonderful people of the Philippines. By the way, before the tariff on Philippines good coming into the United States was 20%. So he got it lowered from 20 to 19. So we got a small tax bait. We should all be happy. You guys, if you buy any Philippine stuff, I don't know if you do, you now you will pay only 19% instead of 20%. We are such winners. America is there's such a winning strategy here. It is amazing. But look, there is some sanity behind this complete madness. Remember, Trump thinks trade deficits are bad. He thinks trade deficits are bad. So he is basically raising the cost of imports by taxing them. So Americans will buy fewer imports. And he's trying to get countries to zero out tariffs for American exports to them, which might increase exports to these countries. Who knows? I mean, Philippines is a tiny little insignificant market for the United States, but let's say it increases. Then exports will go up, imports will go down, and we'll get more of a trade balance, he thinks. Not clear that's how it'll work, although the fact that the dollar is going down pretty much every day, it seems, the value of the dollar is going down, it's even more expensive for us to buy, to import stuff. So imports are going to go down potentially even more. We'll see if foreigners then decide to use their dollars that they have to buy American goods or to keep buying American or to keep investing in America. Because if they want to continue investing in America, they're not going to buy American goods. So it's not clear that exports would increase even if tariffs are zero. You see, it's much more complicated than the way Trump would like to think, or the way his minions, his mindless minions, would like you to think it is. And at the end of the day, the real question is, do foreigners who sell stuff in America and therefore have dollars, what do they want to do with those dollars? And do they want to continue investing in America? Do they want to continue buying American government bonds? Do they want to buy American stocks? Do they want to invest in American companies? What do they want to do? Or are they going to use those dollars to buy American goods? And that, at the end of the day, that decision that foreigners are going to aggregate will determine the extent to which we have a deficit or not. But it sure looks like foreigners are dumping dollars, not trying to embrace dollars. And that can be a good sign. It can be a good sign. And it can be a good sign for investment in America, which means it's going to be very difficult to lower long-term interest rates if foreigners are not willing to buy U.S. government bonds at low interest rates, if they insist on high interest rates in order to buy them. Just related to tariffs is a story out of General Motors. General Motors just announced that its profits shrunk by 35% last quarter after taking a $1.1 billion tariff hit. So it could be that some companies actually absorb the tariffs. That your GM car will now go up in price because GM knows that if they raise the price to reflect the tariff, then you just won't buy their car. They're not that great, right? So some of the tariff, they're absorbing themselves. That means their profit goes down. That means shareholders are less wealthy. That means there's less money for whatever, for R&D, for expansion, for future growth, for for paying dividends, for buying stock back, for giving raises to employees. So one way or another, the tariff get paid by American. It might not be consumers. It might be that American companies pay the tariff and therefore their profits tumble. But it's, one way or the other, the only people to pay the tariffs, or overwhelming majority of the tariffs, is paid by American consumers and American companies. And there's nothing good about this, unless you hate business, unless you hate American businesses. And of course, part of, people are celebrating this, right? So the people here online celebrating this because this will show GM, this will show them, for moving some of their production overseas. This'll get them. They should bring back the jobs to America, start manufacturing again in America. And maybe they will. And then I can guarantee you one thing, they will pass all that cost on to you. You will pay for it. You will pay much higher prices for your GM car. Somebody says, my mic is intermittently cutting out. There's other people getting my mic cutting out intermittently. Shouldn't be. Yeah, I don't think, okay, it looks like it's an internet problem on your end, not on mine. All right, well, maybe a few of you, the mic was cutting out, but it looks like it was, on this side, everything looks normal. So try, if it's cutting out, try shutting down your browser and opening up again, and hopefully it'll be fine. Somebody said, Lincoln says, Tesla is the only solid U.S. car company. Really? Tesla? The one with dramatically plummeting sales? Particularly overseas? The one that's going to have to pay really high costs for batteries from China because of the tariffs? I don't see how that is the case. Just don't see it. Okay, Federal Reserve. We talked a lot about the Federal Reserve yesterday with George Selgin. If you haven't watched that episode, check it out. I think you'll learn a lot about the Great Depression, Federal Reserve. Anyway, as we've talked about, there's a lot of pressure on Jeremy Powell to resign or really to lower interest rates. They're renovating the Federal Reserve building, and now Trump is suggesting that, they're spending way too much money on this renovation. There's too much marble. And of course, the marble and all of that is a lot of that has to do with the first Trump administration's architectural design criteria for new and existing government buildings to make them look even more Greco-Roman than they already do. But anyway, they're looking for any excuse to find a loophole where they can fire Jerome Powell, because it's not clear that the president could just fire him at will. So the construction project right now is the thing, and Powell keeps saying, Trump keeps saying, I want to fire the guy. Indeed, this morning, if you open up Twitter, there were all these rumors running around that Powell was going to give a speech today and he was going to resign. Powell indeed did give a speech today, but it had no relation to resigning. It was not about resigns at all. At all. Now, Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, has come out and kind of weakly defended Powell and said, no, I don't think he should resign now. And Bassett is very sensitive to the markets, and markets don't seem to want Powell to be kicked out. And I think markets are very, very afraid that a Fed that is not independent of the government would wreak havoc on inflation, and that if Trump was somehow in charge of the Fed, he would lower interest rate dramatically. And the market, justifiably or not, is afraid of low interest rates spurring another kind of a bubble, inflationary bubble. So Bassett yesterday went on CNBC and basically said, quote, what we need to do is examine the entire Federal Reserve institution and whether they have been successful. Has the organization succeeded in its mission? If this were the Federal Aviation Administration and we were having this many mistakes, we would go back and look at why this happened. Wow, that is amazing. I'm all for that. If, and this is a big if it could actually be done objectively. But for the Trump administration to be doing this review is really, 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 really scary. Like, I wouldn't trust the people Trump appointed to review the Fed and its success or its failure. I wouldn't trust them with my money. I wouldn't trust them with anything. But the idea of, let's review the Fed, because I think if you heard Joe Selgin, or if you've read Joe Selgin's work, the Fed has failed. It's failed from the beginning, caused the Great Depression to a large extent, or made it much deeper than it needed to be. And the Fed has failed over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it creates, pre-Fed American economy was more stable than a post-Fed. Now, I don't know what the solution is other than free banking. But do you think Trump would ever allow for free banking? No. Would Bassett allow for free banking? No. They want to just create another institution that they would pretend is better than Fed and maybe give the president more control over it and politicize it even more, and it would be even a bigger disaster than the Fed. By the way, Bassett is considered one of the potential successors of Jerome Powell at the helm of the Fed. So while I completely embrace the idea of let's have a conversation about whether the Fed has succeeded or failed, let's not let this administration present alternatives or be in a position to create alternatives. Now, it's not going to happen anyway because that would have to go through Congress and you'd need a 60 votes in the Senate, and nothing is going to happen to the Fed, and nobody's going to challenge it. But this review of the Fed will never happen. Coming up with more objective, better standards at the Fed is not something this administration wants. For example, having the Fed, embrace a rule-based monetary system, which was what John Taylor would advocate for and what a Taylor rule would do, is not what Trump wants. Trump wants a Trump-based monetary rule system. Whatever the president feels like, that's what monetary policy should be. And that is about the worst option possible. There's nothing quite as bad as that. So, they want to relook at the Fed. They want to re-examine the Fed. And yes, I'll say it again, the Fed has, economic volatility, just from a purely economic perspective. Economic volatility is greater post-Fed than pre-Fed. Even if you take out the first horrible 30 years of Fed existence out. Even if you take those years out, it's still worse. Yeah, maybe we should have the Trump meme coin be our new money. Get rid of dollars and let's just have Trump meme coin. as we'll see in a little bit when we get to the fusion, and you guys can guess what this is about. When we get to the fusion story, which might be true or might not be true, I don't know. I read it. I said, this is kind of interesting and kind of cool. So, you guys can tell me if it's true or not. But as we see when we get to the fusion story, it might be impossible to go back to the gold standard. Now I got you thinking. What's the relationship between the gold standard and nuclear fusion? What's the relationship between the gold standard and nuclear fusion? Well, I'm going to tell you, but you're going to have to wait. All right. Let's see. Energy. So, the big, beautiful bill failed in stopping the subsidies to all the wind and solar energy programs. The Trump administration is clearly opposed to all these investments in solar and wind. So they're trying to come up with other ways to block and eliminate these projects so that they don't have to subsidize them. And so the Interior Department today announced that what they're going to do is they're going to put any wind and solar project through much stricter review. Indeed, they're going to create, in a sense, a whole set of bureaucracy. A whole set of bureaucracy. I mean, Jennifer got it. Good for Jennifer. The relationship between fusion and gold standard, Jennifer in the chat actually got the answer to it. So this is from a news story. The Interior Department said in a memo that a wide range of agency actions related to approving new wind and solar power would now have to be reviewed by the Office of the Interior Secretary, Doug Burgum, instead of by lower-level agency staff. That includes more than 68 types. Note the level of bureaucracy, right? That includes more than 68 types of agency actions, including federal permits, environmental reviews, lease sales, site plans, wildlife impact assessments, and numerous smaller decisions and consultations. In a statement, the agency said that the move was aimed at ending preferential treatment for unreliable, that's Alex Epstein terminology, unreliable. Ending preferential treatment for unreliable, subsidy-dependent wind and solar energy. So basically, they want to kill the industry the way the leftists have always killed industries, with red tape. So the Energy Department is going to create massive amounts of red tape in order to kill these wind and solar projects. They're going to use the mechanisms the left created in order to kill fossil fuel projects and any building in order to go after wind and solar. I guess you have to say whatever it takes, although I hate to see red tape. I wish there was just a decision. We're not going to approve them. Hell with it. We don't believe they're good. They're bad for the country. Just stop doing them. Or even better, kill the subsidies and let them all happen. And then if they're economic, why not have them? And if they're not economic, without a subsidy, they would fail anyway. But this is another mechanism. This is the right using the left's methods in order to pursue its own agenda. Now, we talked about sugar. We've talked about sugar. We talked about the fact that sugar prices in the United States are double what they are anywhere else in the world. That is, world sugar prices exactly half. than American sugar prices, and that's because of basically the quotas that America has placed on the importation of sugar. Basically, tariffs, the taxes, the importing sugar, made it impossible to really import sugar effectively into the United States, and allowed Florida sugar growers to basically sell sugar at just unbelievable prices, at monopoly prices. Monopoly, because they do have a government-granted monopoly. The government is shielding them, protecting them from foreign competition. And they are bilking, gouging the American consumer. Anyway, Secretary Brooke Rollins, the Secretary of the Agriculture, and she's a Republican, so I'm sure she's a free marketer and is very upset at sugar growers for bilking the American people, and she's a big advocate for lowering the quotas and lowering the tariffs on the importation of sugar from other places, because they want to replace sugar in Coca-Cola. I read today that in the fall, Coca-Cola will release some of its Coca-Cola with cane sugar. And if they do that, then I have a feeling it's going to be more expensive. You can buy Coke with sugar, cane sugar, but it's going to be more expensive. Anyway, Secretary Brooke Rollins visited a sugar farm in Florida. And this is what she had to say. This is a tweet she tweeted. What an incredible visit with U.S. sugar. Florida's sugarcane farmers are producing something truly special. Absolutely. It's sprinkled with gold. That's why it's so expensive. Proud to support their work and the sweet success of American ag. God. And these are the same Republicans, same MAGA creeps that complain about foreign subsidies. These are the same people who complain about other countries' unfair trade practices. It really is disgusting. There's a as a consequence of the price gap between the U.S. and the world, nearly 3 confectionery manufacturing jobs are lost for every job protected in the sugar growing sector. They've been gouging American consumers since 1934. That should be the title. That should be on every bag of sugar. It should say that. Somebody else tweets, if only there was a place to get higher quality sugar at a lower price, about 300 miles or so south of Florida. Wait, there is. Somebody else writes, the most damaging and corrupt industry in the whole state. The sugar lobby is what many people imagine APAC is. The federal government lets them gouge American consumers, bakers, and candy manufacturers, charging us twice the world price of sugar. This is who your Republican government celebrates. They celebrate the sugar farmers of Florida, the monopoly, the state monopoly, the granted monopoly by the state, who gouge Americans and destroy jobs in this country. State of the world, state of the world, state of the world. Stay optimistic, Yaron. You can do it. Just a reminder, a way for me to stay optimistic is for you to ask questions. Super chat. You want to shape the show? The way to shape the show is to ask questions. I will answer your questions. Whatever you ask, I will indeed answer. So please ask questions. You can also support the show through stickers. You can do that now as I'm wrapping up the news here. And you can support the show. This is a listener, viewer, supported show. Couldn't exist without you. So please consider supporting it now and getting me to cover a story that you want covered by asking a question about it. I just wanted to give you an example of cronyism. Here's a headline in the news today. Ex-Intel CEO backs Trump's sovereign wealth fund plan. He says it can help the U.S. keep up with China in tech race. In other words, he wants the sovereign wealth fund to invest in critical technologies like semiconductors, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing. He says Washington's haphazard approach to fueling national competitiveness in strategic industries isn't cutting it. Trump's proposed sovereign wealth fund could secure American leadership. That's right, because we know that American leadership in every field that it is a leader, a world leader, has been secured by government investment. Without government investment, basically forget it. Without government investment, the United States is hopeless. And what we need is more government industrial planning, more government central planning. What we need is more government promotion. For those of you who don't know the history of this, in the 1980s, Intel was, at the time, in the early 80s, Intel was the largest manufacturer of semiconductors in the world. It was the dominant company. And by the mid-1980s, it was facing massive competition from Japanese. This is in memory chips, RAM chips. And by the late 1980s, it was it was really struggling. And it couldn't compete with the Japanese. Japanese just did RAM better, faster, cheaper, more reliably. Their RAM chips failed at a much, much lower rate. And Intel lobbied the government. And as a consequence of that, Symantec was created. Symantec was a kind of a supposedly research thing, call it a cartel, funded by the Defense Department to do research, cutting-edge research in semiconductor manufacturing, funded by the U.S. government, in an effort to resurrect and to reinvigorate the chip industry in the United States. Now, in parallel to that, Intel did a massive strategic shift, abandoned the production of RAM chips, and shifted towards logic chips. And again, regained its position as the dominant microprocessing company in the world until it got clobbered by TSMC. But that strategic shift happened. Intel initiated it. Symantec, in the meantime, wasted hundreds of millions of dollars, did nothing, achieved nothing, produced nothing. And ultimately, I think it's still around as a trade organization, but it disappeared. But that was the attempt. By the way, at the same time, the Reagan administration actually puts, caps and quotas on Japanese RAM entering the United States. So even the Reagan administration was guilty of this kind of attempt to manage trade and to impose industrial policy on the United States. Now we see round two. Intel again is struggling. It's barely alive. The Biden administration passed the CHIP Act with a lot of Republican support to try to subsidize Intel and a bunch of other chip manufacturers. It didn't really help Intel. Intel's still struggling in spite of the CHIP Act. It has fired a lot of people. There's talk about restructuring, splitting the company up. We'll see if Intel survives all this. And now maybe the solution is, no, CHIP Act was too small. We need a sovereign wealth fund to funnel huge quantities of money. Maybe it could be filled with Bitcoin, to funnel huge numbers of Bitcoin into Intel to save American technology. In the meantime, NVIDIA, the largest company, I think, in the world, crossed $4 trillion. NVIDIA is an American company, but I think people hate NVIDIA because I mean, Trumpists hate NVIDIA because NVIDIA doesn't make anything. It doesn't make anything. Like it supposedly makes AI chips, but it doesn't really make AI chips. The AI chips are made by TSMC. What NVIDIA does is design the chips. And that doesn't count because those are service jobs. The manufacturing of the chips is done by TSMC in Taiwan, not in America. So NVIDIA chips are not American made and therefore no good. And indeed, Trump has threatened to put 100% tariff on chips coming in from Taiwan. Now, I don't think he'll do that. That's insane. That is real suicide. Anyway, NVIDIA does not make chips. NVIDIA designs chips. The chips are made. I mean, we're talking about the labor theory of value, which is what the Trump administration is all about, right? What matters is you make, use labor, use hands. That's all done by TSMC in Taiwan. By machines, but it's manufacturing. NVIDIA is just a service company, so it doesn't count. Doesn't count. Indeed, when NVIDIA sells chips to China, I don't know, does that count as U.S. export if the chips go from Taiwan directly to China? They don't have to come to NVIDIA. Maybe, you know, so I'm not sure how that counts in terms of the trade accounting, how that is done. But, you know, the U.S. leads the world by far. Not in manufacturing chips, what Intel used to do. Micron used to do. But in designing chips. And then we let the actual production happen in places like Taiwan and Korea. But that doesn't count. People don't like that. People don't count that. So we need American government to invest in manufacturing chips and manufacturing plants and actually building the chips right here so that we can stamp a flag on them and call them American-made chips. Hey, all right. That's how cronyism works. And encouraged by this, real anti-American administration, anti-capitalist administration, and therefore anti-American administration. As anti-American an administration as there ever has been. Okay, quickly on China. We talked about people falling out of windows. Well, some of them don't fall out of windows. They still die under mysterious circumstances. Irina Podnosova, the head of the Russian Supreme Court, this is like what, Roberts is, right? Has died suddenly in Moscow. Now, notice this. She was appointed to this position just over a year ago, following the equally sudden death of the former head of the Supreme Court. So, people die in Russia in all kinds of mysterious ways. Now, there's some people claiming she succumbed to cancer, and she's been, struggling with it for a long time. But I guess you'd expect that, right? That somebody would say that. In the meantime, the European Union is getting tougher with Putin. Trump says he's going to get tough with Putin, but hasn't actually done anything. Europe is getting tougher with Putin. It slashed oil prices, the oil price cap, to $47.6. What that means is that insurers will not insure any tankers moving Russian crude that are sold above this cap. So if somebody buys oil for 60 they won't get insurance. This should dramatically reduce the amount of revenue that Russia receives from oil if this is really enforceable and if it goes into place. Now, note that almost all insurance, maritime insurance, is provided for ships by European insurance companies in Europe, in European insurance markets. So this could be a real blow to Russia. In addition, 22 additional Russian banks have just lost the SWIFT global payment system. So they've been taken off the SWIFT global payment system. The EU also hit 2 Chinese banks and an Indian refinery with penalties for sanctions evasions. Sanctions now explicitly, the EU has also passed a resolution that they will basically not repair Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines, that they will not renew importation of natural gas from Russia. Let's see, what else has happened here? In the meantime, Europeans are cutting big LNG deals with America and other places in order to replace the natural gas. So they're cutting natural gas. Just a quick note on the Russian economy. Interest rates are at 20% because inflation is so high. Loans are defaulting. Russian top bank executives are engaged in bailout talks because the banks are potentially failing. And of course, now Trump needs to take it over the edge with his, 500% oil tariffs on anybody who buys Russian crude, or, the confiscation of $300 billion in frozen Russian assets. Anyway, much more important than all of that, Trump needs to get serious about providing Ukraine with the kind of arms that would allow Ukraine to actually finish the job of defeating the Russians. All right, let's do a few other stories. Got a couple of Chinese stories, and then we'll go from there. All right, a couple of stories in China. One is, we've talked about this many times, China's just dominating on the electric vehicle market. It just dominates, and the more Trump alienates other countries, the less chance Tesla, I think, has to break into those countries. Also, Tesla EVs are significantly more expensive than Chinese EVs, and probably not as good. That is, Chinese EVs now are probably better or the equal of Tesla. And China's taking advantage of kind of America antagonizing pretty much everybody around the world. So, for example, in Brazil, about a 2-hour drive from São Paulo, a Chinese battery-powered car manufacturer's building is taking over a factory, and it's which is going to supply electric cars to the entire Latin American market. Basically, this is a factory that used to be run by Mercedes-Benz, and it used to be a very profitable Mercedes-Benz, but no longer is. No longer can Mercedes compete. So it's been taken over by Great Wall Motor, and it now is going to basically sell cheap, pretty good, pretty reliable electric cars all over Latin America, which is going to dramatically change that market. And you're going to see more and more and more Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers moving in to the global market, both, to replace Tesla, to take advantage of the opportunity of Tesla not really competing, and to try to dominate the market. Just to give you another sense of China's ambition, and when Trump says build baby build or drill baby drill, the fact that in China they're actually doing that. So they just announced in China that construction has begun on what is going to become the world's largest hydropower dam on the eastern rim of the Tibetan plateau at an estimated cost of $170 billion. It's a massive hydropower project, bigger and more ambitious than the Three Gorges Dam on the Yangtze. And it will have the capacity to produce 300 billion kilowatt hours of electricity annually, which is about the amount of electricity consumed by Great Britain last year. The dam is going to be located in the low reaches of the Yalung Zangbo, a section of the river that tumbles 2,000 meters, 6,561 feet, in a span of 50 kilometers. It's very steep, which provides massive hydro potential. So, and this is important because right now, China is massively investing. I mean, massively investing in electricity production. It's investing in electricity production for the purpose of building other stuff. For the purpose of AI, for example. For the purpose of, growing its economy. So in China, you're seeing massive increases in nuclear, for example. Heavily investing in China in nuclear power. And in the U.S., what do we do? In the U.S., we're not running ahead with producing electricity. We're still fighting old battles about not wasting money and time with solar and wind. But what we really need to be doing is massively investing. What we really need to be doing is massively deregulating the nuclear energy, for example, the hydro energy, example. We're taking away dams. We're not building dams in America. The Chinese are ambitious. You got to give them that. Authoritarian and horrible in so many different ways, but ambitious. All right. We got to the fusion. So I'm going to read you the story. Now, it's not April 1st, and it's a story in the Financial Times. Financial Times is usually not, full of it. So I'm just going to read you from the story. A fusion energy startup claims to have solved the millennia-old challenge of how to turn other metals into gold. Chrysopoeia, commonly known as alchemy, has been pursued by civilizations as far back as ancient Greece. Now San Francisco-based Marathon Fusion, a startup focused on using nuclear fusion to generate power, said the same process could be used to produce gold from mercury. So Isaac Newton was right to dabble in alchemy. He just needed fusion. He needed Einstein. In an academic paper published last week, Marathon proposes that neutrons released in fusion reactions could be used to produce gold through a process called nuclear transmutation. Sounds a little dicey, but nuclear transmutation. The paper has not yet been peer-reviewed, but has had a positive reception by some experts in the field. To quote Dr. Ahmed Diallo, a plasma physicist at UC Department of Energy National Laboratory at Princeton, he says, on paper, it looks great. And everyone so far that I talked to remains intrigued and excited. Marathon was founded in 2023 by Kyle Schiller and Chief Technology Officer, that's the CEO, and Chief Technology Officer Adam Witkowski, both 30 years old, as an engineering company aimed at solving the technical challenges of building fusion power plants. So A startup which has 12 full-time employees has raised $5.9 million in investment and about $4 million in U.S. government grants to date. Initially, the team worked on challenges such as how to make the fuel-burning system in a fusion power plant more efficient and started thinking about the possibilities of nuclear transmutation earlier this year. Scientists have synthesized gold using particle accelerators, but their amounts have been tiny and the cost extremely high. Earlier this year, physicists at Europe's CERN said they had observed lead atoms transforming into gold during high-speed near collision inside the Large Hadron Collider. God, this is amazing. Anyway, this is really cool. Of course, whether this is useful in terms of whether this can actually be a way to create gold out of thin air or out of mercury will depend how expensive the process is and how expensive mercury becomes once it is known that it can be turned into gold, and then how expensive is the process itself. Witowski and Schiller say this means that future fusion power plants that adopt their approach would be able to produce 5,000 kilograms of gold a year per gigawatt of electricity generation without reducing the power output or tritium breeding capacity of the system. At current prices, they estimate that amount of gold would be worth roughly the same as the electricity being generated, potentially doubling the revenue of the plant. Of course, if you increase the supply of gold, what would happen to its price? It will come down. Now, it's interesting, isn't it, that electricity is what you need in order to produce the Bitcoin blocks. The way you create new Bitcoin is through electricity, mining, which is really just the use of electricity in order to solve puzzles. Here, you're going to use electricity again, energy, to basically convert mercury into gold. God, I mean, how this affects exactly the price of gold, how this affects the idea of gold be able to be money, how this affects the idea of holding gold, because it only goes up in price when the supply of gold could increase significantly through this kind of process. Hard to tell. They do say one complication is that the presence of other types of mercury is likely to result in the production of unstable gold isotopes alongside gold-197, meaning the metal could be partially radioactive. Witowski estimates that would mean the gold had to be stored for 14 to 18 years for it to be labeled completely safe. Pretty funny. It's good that gold has no max. One of the great flaws of Bitcoin is that it's capped at 21 million coins. It makes no sense for money to be capped. It just creates volatility and uncertainty about future prices. It's one of the main weaknesses of Bitcoin as money. And it's one of the many reasons it won't become money. Anyway, they say the process could be used to make other precious metals. But Marathon predicts that the size of the gold market means production from fusion reactions could be absorbed without hurting prices. Oh, interesting. Currently, about 3.5 tons of gold is mined every year. So it is true that, 5,000 kilogram is not going to really make that big of a difference. All right, guys. Fascinating, right? This is another way to, and as gold goes up in price, and if this kind of methodology of producing fusion actually takes off, as gold goes up in price, the incentive to create gold out of mercury increases. As gold prices go down, that incentive goes away. And of course, this also affects its value as a monetary instrument as well. Anyway, I haven't thought this all through, but it is super cool and super interesting. And yeah, I'm going to be teaching a class on money in a few days in Arizona, and this will be another cool little anecdote that I can use when I talk about the gold standard. All right, let me just see. Shazbad just came in with $299 for me to review an episode of, $299 or $59? $299, $300 for me to review an episode of The Simpsons. Well, first of all, thank you to Shazbad. I really, really appreciate it, particularly given that I am so pathetically behind on all my reviews that I don't know why anybody asked me to review anything anymore. I am going to catch up on my trip during my trip in Europe. I will be catching up on all the reviews, so I will have an opportunity. At least that's what I'm committing to myself of doing. It's I really hope I can make that happen. I don't know why that didn't copy over one second. I'm just copying this over and make sure I sustain it. There we go. All right, thank you, Shazbad. That really helped with trying to achieve our goal. We got closer, but I don't know what happened today. Today, nobody wants to ask Super Chat questions. It's like I've answered all the questions you guys have. All right, last story. Last story. An AI system built by Google's DeepMind, which is the tech giant's primary artificial intelligence lab. DeepMind is based, I didn't know this, but it's based in London. I met one of its senior engineers at the Music and Philosophy Festival. We talked about, I talked about Ayn Rand, and I think he said he was going to read it. Anyway, they just achieved a gold medal status in the annual International Mathematical Olympiad. This is a math competition for high school students. It's the first time a machine, which solved 5 of the 6 problems at the 2025 competition, reached that level of success. It's another step in AI's ability to deal with math, science, and computer coding, but in solving math and science problems. And it shows kind of the progress that the ongoing progress, not just in cutesy LLMs, language models that appeal to, give us lip when we ask them questions and give us info, but in actually solving interesting math and interesting real world science problems. This is the kind of technology that the United States still leads the world in, and that is going to allow the United States, is going to allow for, I think, economic progress as we move into the future. This is how we get that economic progress. If we're going to have GDP growth, it's not going to be because of Trump. It's going to be in spite of Trump. It could be because of AI. All right. Let's see. All right. So just to remind you, we have Super Chat goals. In spite of Shazbad coming in with $300, we're still behind on our second hour goal. So we're still short about $122. It shouldn't be hard to get there. If everybody listening did a couple of bucks on of a sticker, or if people like Alex, thank you, Alex, do $20 questions, we'll get there really quickly. And Wes just came in with this almost daily, I'd say daily, sometimes twice a day, $50 sticker. So thank you again, Wes, for being such a strong and valuable supporter of the Yaron Brook Show. Don't know what I'd do without you, particularly on days like this. So thank you, Wes. All right, let's jump into some of these $20 questions. I will say just to keep you updated, let's check. Let's do our daily check of kind of the 40,000. Are we at the 40,000 subscribers yet? You know, because we should celebrate when we get there. We're getting close, guys. We're getting close. 39,984. So we're 16 away from reaching the 40,000. So if you right now are listening, either here on YouTube, just click subscribe and help us get to the goal. But also, you know, you get notified and you get to be a part of this community. You get to be a part of this show. So, you know, click on that. And if you're on Twitter and watching or on any other platform, come on over to YouTube and subscribe. And if you're a podcaster, and you should subscribe on YouTube. So let's try to get to that 40,000 again. Anytime you get to a core number like that, it helps with the algorithm. We get more exposure, and we can actually grow the program significantly. What happens at 40,000? Nothing, other than it's a nice round number. I don't know if the algorithm knows it's a nice round number. I'm told it certainly does at 50,000. So I guess 40,000 is just a little closer to 50. And 50 matters. Jeremy just gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Jeremy. I really appreciate that. I'll have to do another membership or members-only show soon. Those of you who are now members can go and check out all the members-only shows that I've done in the past. There's basically you have access now to all of those. The 5 of you who have the access now that didn't have before. Yeah, Lincoln says, finally I have a YBS membership. Well, you shouldn't say that. You should say, thank you, Jeremy, for making it possible for me to finally have a YBS membership. Thank you is a very, very valuable term in the English language, or in any language for that matter. And Lucinda now is doing is gifting 5 memberships. Some of you might want to say thank you to Lucinda. All right, let's jump in. Clark. In regards to the CEO and HR woman who were caught and went viral, where does all this hatred come from, he says. Let me just pull this over here. Where does all this come from? Wanting to see complete strangers' lives ruined. These people must have no lives and fester with resentment. I think many of them do have lives, but they fester with resentment. They're not happy with their lives. They're just generally unhappy people. I think we live in a world of envy, where envy is a big part of the world in which we live. And there is a lot of resentment and envy and hatred of success at really all kind of levels of our society, and particularly there's a hatred. I mean, look what happened when that CEO was killed. The United Healthcare CEO was killed. I mean, just the joy that brought to some people. I mean, just the ugliness. The horror of it all. So it's we just have a culture in which the negative, the putting people down, the tearing people apart is something that is sadly celebrated, and it's not new, but I think it's worse. And I think, if you will, social media makes it worse. It makes it so easy. And you can stay anonymous. You can stay anonymous with social media. You can destroy people's lives and never have to disclose who you are. All right, let's see. Lincoln says, I should get you on to speak at the University of Arizona next time he comes to Arizona. Just get me to speak at the University of Arizona. We'll figure out a date. I'll come to Arizona especially for that. But get somebody at the University of Arizona to invite me to come and speak, and I'll come. So, get in touch, or we can talk when I'm in Arizona this coming week, and let's make it happen. Lucinda says, let's work harder to reach the Super Chat goal. Everyone remember to send stickers. Thank you, Lucinda, for reminding everybody of that. Shahbad helped us get to the goal, and others have jumped in, and it looks like we're very, very close. Only $25 to go. Thank you, Lucinda. Alex, the number one golfer is winning like Tiger Woods at his peak, but is a devout Christian boring to watch, and I can't stand listening to him because he acts like none of the glory of achievement belongs to him. Is it just me? I haven't seen this guy. There hasn't been like the vibe. I used to love watching Tiger. I thought Tiger had a swagger, he had a confidence, he had an aura about him that was just fun to watch and fun to see. I never cared much about golf before Tiger. I didn't care much about golf after Tiger, but I watched golf when Tiger was around because I like to watch Tiger. And he just had a personality. And I haven't heard of this guy, so it doesn't surprise me that he's a boring Christian and a humble Christian. Exudes humility. All right, we picked up 1 subscriber, so only 15 short of our 40,000 goal. Zachary, I'm sorry for missing the Q&A on Saturday. I went hiking with some friends and forgot about the time difference. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you, Zachary. We'll catch you next time. No problem at all. We'll catch you next time. $15 to making our goal. Robert, the sound is good. You should give the tech guy a raise. I can't give the tech guy a raise. Only you can give the tech guy a raise. You guys, have to give the tech guy a raise. Daisy, if you could resurrect a rock star, who would it be? Resurrect a rock star. Resurrect a rock star. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know what Jennifer would do. That's a no-brainer. And he would be cool because it would be kind of cool to, talk to him about his lyrics and about his love of Ayn Rand. But who would I resurrect? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anybody, so I just gonna have to say, I don't know. I'm tempted to go with whose name now, of course, escapes me, which is ridiculous, from Rush, who just would be cool to meet. I'd like to meet him, given the Ayn Rand connection. Neil Pert, thank you. Neil, so yeah. Clark, does the loneliness epidemic stem from entitlement or mindlessness? People not realize the value in seeking meaningful connection with others. I think to some extent, the loneliness epidemic stems from both entitlement and mindlessness. It really is an epidemic of people not taking full responsibility for their own lives, full responsibility for creating meaning in their own life, for creating purpose in their own life, and also for creating a connection with other people. There's so many opportunities in this world to connect with other people. So, so I think that is you're absolutely right. I think people, to get rid of the loneliness epidemic, what we need is for people to take responsibility for their own lives, to take responsibility for their relationships, take responsibility for their loneliness, and do something about it. And in a world of the internet, and a world where you can have a hobby, you can have all kinds of interests and find people who share that hobby and those interests on the internet, there's just no reason not to do it. I'm curious who you guys, I know with Jennifer and Robert want to resurrect Neil. I'm curious if there are other people out there who would they want to bring back to life? Neil Diamond, Enric says. I wonder who else is out there. Jeffrey, thank you, Jeffrey. What's the relationship between logic and reason? Well, logic is a tool of reason. Logic is one of the tools of reason. I don't think it's all the tools reason has, but it's a necessary tool that one has to use in order to discover truth. But reason includes, for example, your identification of reality, your observation of reality. And one of the things you do with what you observe, one of the things that reason does, is you make sure that there are no contradictions in the data and the information and the integration that you have created with all that material. So reason, you get the evidence of the senses, you integrate it, you integrate it into concepts, you integrate it into ideas, and then you're constantly using logic to make sure that those ideas don't contradict each other, that there are no conflicts, and if they are, you use logic in order to resolve those, but you also use observation in order to bring it all back to reality. So reason is one of the tools of, logic is one of the tools of reason. Reason is the larger category. Logic is one of the tools within that. Induction, deduction. Deduction is a logical tool. Is induction a part of logic? Deduction, I think, is, but I'm not sure induction is. Anyway, that's how I see it. But again, a really good question to ask one of our philosophers when they're on. Jennifer said Freddie Mercury. Yeah, I mean, that would be fun. That would be fun. They could do a real have a Freddie Mercury do Queen on stage. I mean, that would be a blast to see him alive. I mean, there's a lot of those young, like in the 70s, who died young, who just amazing musicians who who died young of overdose, and who never really, we didn't see how their careers would develop. All right, we got Don McLean. Yeah, I mean, I like Don McLean. I saw him many, 2 or 3 times live in Israel when I was a teenager. I probably did enough Don McLean. Prince, I was never a fan of Prince, but I get it. Yeah, I mean, Freddie Mercury was a great singer, but he also had a presence, right? He also had a real presence on stage. Let's see, who else do we have here? George Harrison. Oh, yeah, I mean, in spite of his politics, John Lennon would be kind of interesting to see what he would have done. And obviously a really good musician. I see Robert says John Lennon, number 1. Elvis Presley, number 2. Jimi Hendrix is one of those who died very young, incredible musical ability, and never really got to fully see where he would go. Janis Joplin, another one of those young ones. Jim Croce, yeah, I always liked Jim Croce. He was always, I really liked it. David Bowie, Frank Zappa. All right, so there were a lot. There were a lot of them. That generation, yeah. Some of them died back then, but then Jim Morrison from The Doors. Klaus Nomi. I don't know who Klaus Nomi is. Lennon would be interesting. Just I'd be curious if he develops at all. He might not. His political ideology might have killed him, but musically. But he obviously was a talented songwriter. Lucinda says, "What's your favorite Kurosawa movie?" I mean, that's difficult, partially because I can't remember them all. But I've always thought that Kagemusha is really underrated, and it's a stunningly beautiful movie. It's from the same period he did Ran, which is also another one of my favorites. But Kagemusha, I'd have to say, is probably my favorite. What was the one with a businessman whose kid gets kidnapped? Is there an American remake of that coming out soon? Well, but that was a really good movie. Not as much, I mean, it's really good in every aspect, but one not as stylistically stunning as Kagemusha, but storytelling beautiful. But I think Kagemusha, I don't know if you guys have seen Kagemusha, but it's a really great movie. Somebody says Lennon was becoming more conservative. There's a scary thought. John Lennon writing music for conservatives. Oh my God, he would have become a MAGA. Imagine MAGA with John Lennon's musical talent. It's a very, very scary thought. Benjamin, thank you for the sticker. Let's see. We had some other stickers here. Ollie, thank you for the sticker. Lucinda, thank you for the sticker. Wes, I already thanked, but it's always good to thank again. Enric, Robert, Roland, Lucinda, of course, and Jeremy for buying the memberships. Thank you guys. And Esoteric Dichotomy, thanks for the sticker. Normative Randroid, Rajesh, thank you guys. Thank you all for the support. Really, really appreciate it. All right. Fleshing. China will keep outpacing the U.S. as long as the U.S. keeps embracing religion as its main priority. Well, religion and regulations and controls and restrictions and woke left, woke right nonsense. I agree. I mean, I don't think China has an edge in the United States, except the United States is killing itself. Enric says Ikuru is his favorite Kurosawa movie. I'm curious if you guys have favorite Kurosawa movies. Alex, can being in close proximity to someone who refuses to live, capital L, whether through work, a relationship, or family, prevent you from truly living? Well, I mean, it depends what close proximity means. It can certainly suck your energy out of you if you have a ongoing relationship with that person. If you have to be in touch with that person, or if you have to do stuff together with that person, then yeah, it can make work harder. Certainly a relationship is going to be very difficult, because how can you live if the partner you have in living is not? Family, you can always work away from. But yeah, I think you really, really need to think that through and really need to take into account, is this person hurting my ability to live? And that you can only figure that out yourself. And you have to be willing to walk away from relationships that are self-destructive, that are destroying you. You only have one life. You only live once. You've got to take advantage of it. And you've got to optimize it. And you don't get any second back. Don't waste it on self-sacrificial relationships or on relationships that are hampering you or holding you back. I don't know, because it feels bad or to let go. All right, let's see. Kim, is it wrong to have a love for money? Well, I mean, no, but it depends what you mean by a love for money. A love for money in and of itself, what is there to love? Money as your money, that you have earned, that it reflects your productive ability and your capacity to trade with other people. Yeah, you should love your money. But love, for example, would you feel that love for the money, if is $100 that you pick up off the street, you find by accident, the same as $100 you earn from the perspective of your love of money? If it's just love of money, then this is, the money has to represent something to you, is my point. And you have to think about why you love the money. And if you love the money because of what it represents, production, and what it represents, consumption on the other side, that is your ability to use your production in order to raise your quality and standard of living, then yeah, you should absolutely love it. It's very lovable. Money is very lovable. I mean, loving money in order to get rich is good, as long as you identify what it is about money you're loving, and that is that it represents, it symbolizes, it concretizes your productive capacity, or somebody's productive capacity. and it represents production. And by doing so, it also presents consumption. Consumption is just the flip side of production, and therefore represents the ability to live a better life. Not your average algorithm. What's your favorite borough in New York City? Do you prefer Queens over Brooklyn? I have no idea. I do not know the boroughs. I've not spent any time in the boroughs. I probably prefer Brooklyn to Queens, but I have no knowledge really. I'm just basing that on rumor, on suspicion. Jason, if by tech or supernatural, after death, you could stay conscious, aware of everything in the universe, but unable to act or escape, would you choose it? I mean, that's so weird, right? I mean, I've never thought of that. I guess because I'm curious and I just want to know what happens. I probably would. Would I regret it? I might. I might regret it. The inability to act would be, I think, frustrating, and I think at the end of the day, it would be a negative experience. So I have to say rationally, no, I wouldn't take it. But my curiosity might override my rationality in this one. Anyway, it's not a dilemma I will have to face. Nothing should override your rationality, by the way. Jeffrey says, what would you do if you were paying rent in an apartment that became rent controlled? I mean, nothing, I guess. It's not, it's not your fault it became rent controlled. You're not responsible for it. You're not sanctioning it because you were always here and suddenly this became. So, and if you like the apartment, assuming you like the apartment, I wouldn't leave just because it became rent controlled. Because, you're inconveniencing yourself because of somebody else's folly. Well, worse than folly, somebody else's evil. So I wouldn't leave unless, of course, I wanted to leave. And one of the problems with rent-controlled apartments, of course, is that maintenance goes down, the landlord starts neglecting it, they don't care. They, in a sense, want to drive you out because when somebody comes in who's new, they can raise the price. They can't raise the price as long as you live there, usually. So it's going to be unpleasant. So probably ultimately I would leave, but I would leave on my terms, not on the terms established by the authorities. In this case, Mamdani, if he becomes mayor of New York. Let's hope that still is preventable. I'm not sure it is, but let's hope it's preventable. Jeffrey, thank you. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you to all of you guys, particularly Shazbot. And really appreciate it. Really appreciate all the super chatters and the gifters of memberships. And I won't see you tomorrow. I'm on a plane tomorrow. I actually got a hormone shot into my hip today. Long needle. It's like this long of a needle. And they go through your, just below your groin, and they go into the hip. And they inject a steroid, I guess, not hormone, steroid, in there. And I think it feels better right now as a consequence of that. And I did it because I'm going to be in a plane tomorrow. I'm going to be traveling. I'm going to have to give these classes at the Peterson Academy. And I'll tell you, it woke me up 3 or 4 times. I woke up last night from pain from this, whatever it is that I did to my hip. And I needed some relief. So I went to see a doctor, got the injection, and I think it's going to be better. And then hopefully long-term, we'll figure out how to prevent this from happening again and it doesn't come back once the steroid wears off, once it wears off. But I should be good to go for Arizona. I look forward to seeing some of you guys in Arizona. If I have time, I will try to do some shows from Arizona, probably on Sunday. Pretty sure I do one on Sunday. Now, remember, Arizona is like 3 hours earlier, so it's Pacific time. So the time of day might be weird, but I will try to do some shows from Arizona. And I will try to let you know in advance. And I look forward to seeing some of you at our meetup. And if some of you haven't let me know about coming to the meetup or wanting to come to the meetup, you can still email me and we can still send you an invitation. It's at a local restaurant. We're going to have dinner and have a chat. I'll probably be exhausted. It's going to be Saturday night after 3 days of teaching. I'm going to be wiped out, so all of you will have to excuse the fact I'll probably be low energy. But it'll be fun. It'll be fun. All right, guys. Thank you. I'll see you at the latest on Sunday, maybe before that, not tomorrow for sure. And have a great rest of your week.